What's up, everybody, and welcome to Expedition Online Season 6, little fireside chat breaking down all the excitement that was Day 10 of this season. With me tonight, I have Jess Martin, Jon Schneidman, and the Compass King himself, Jack Powell. Jack, let's start with you. How are we doing tonight? Welcome to the fireside, man.
I'm so welcome to be here. You just brought it. Ah, there's one.
There it is.
Still sitting on them.
Put it up. I still got it. I've been fantastic. The draft was a couple of months ago, and I've taken some losses from some of my picks, so I'm not swinging with the perfect batting average here, but I'm really liking everything that's going on. I'm in a good point in life. I have a girlfriend. That's an accomplishment in of itself.
And thank you for coming to our fireside chat. That was a great catch up on Season 5, Jack.
That's it. End of chat.
All
right? That's it.
Thank you all. I'm so flattered. Thank you.
And we're going to turn off the recorder and just ask Jack a million questions about this girl.
But yeah, life's been good, and I'm just excited to hang back with the crew. So.
Very nice. Well, we're happy to have you breaking down everything that we just saw in episode 10. 8 players left. You would think that would mean 18 votes, but we saw 19 votes. We saw a compass played. We saw an almost chance to go to the wheel. Tonight was fun. Tonight was fun, to say the least. Schneidman, what's your kind of grand takeaway of what we just saw?
I think it's really. I think, as the players pointed out, it's very hard to strategize through the multiple votes and whoever gets the least amount of votes. Like, it's so hard to keep track of what everybody's doing, to the point that I think a few players lost their own plot, but we could talk about that. But the discussion I'm very excited to have with you guys is the discussion they all made not to go to the wheel, and whether or not that decision served all of the players in the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we can build up to that point. I think first we have to start kind of where the madness started and give Aaliyah some flowers. She won her first exemption. Exemption in this round means a lot more than other rounds. Not only did she get that, she got 4 votes to spread around. So major props to Aaliyah. Jess, if you're in her shoes, you got to feel pretty good coming into this round safe.
Yes, as someone who has participated in the reverse vote, it is awful, and Shane took this version to his mad science lab and amped it up a little bit, so good on her. This was the one to win, even more than the boomerang vote. I think I was even more confused here.
Yeah, I mean, people were all over the place. Courtney herself said that even though she had 0 votes, she was stressing out about things, and for other reasons as well. But this is one situation where I was trying to think, do you want more votes, or is it almost nice to have just one vote that you can spray around and kind of hope it lands on somebody, get them that one vote? Everybody had power this round, but I don't know, Jack, how would you approach a reverse vote, depending on where you are in the pecking order?
It's so difficult. And first of all, 19 votes, that's more than double of the votes in the game currently. And so you're throwing all of that on. You're throwing on the power dynamics of who has more votes based on the challenge. You're throwing on who you have relationships with and how those votes are going to affect those relationships. It's so many convolutions all thrown into one round. And for me, I think the best approach is obviously getting right near that middle ground of getting 2 to 3 votes. I feel like there's a way in which getting 4 votes and not having immunity, such as Annie did, would have worked for her if she played a little bit more aggressive in the whole kind of scheme of things. I think, 4 votes, if you start trying to lead things, you will build up a target. But I think that's exactly what Annie needed for her specific game. And so if I were in her shoes, I would try to counterbalance that. At the same time, it's weird. It's a really weird round result because Courtney had 0 votes and she was in the tie. Annie had 4 and she was in the tie.
Yeah, I mean, I think just having 1 vote is okay. I don't think you need all 4 votes to have that much power. If you look at it, Austin had 1 vote. He sent Courtney into the final tie. Like, Aaliyah had 4 votes, and she voted for Annie. That didn't benefit her. She sent her ally in. So it's how you use it and figuring out what other people are going to do with their votes.
Yeah, it's almost like it doesn't matter how many votes you have or how many votes you even receive. The vote isn't the currency in this round. It's all of your social relationships because you're getting other people to throw their votes on you. You're not trying to avoid getting votes. So This round is all about those social relationships. I think you saw Eli approach it well. I think you saw Ryan approach it well in almost using it as currency, right? I'll give you 1 of my votes if you give me 1 of yours. If my ally gives you 2, can you give 2 to me so that we're splitting this triangle different ways, That's really where this vote gets interesting, and some people played that aggressive way. Again, you see the people who are being more aggressive asking people for votes versus the people who are like, yeah, I don't know where my votes are going to go. We can maybe trade it. Those people kind of suffered this round. So
what I found really interesting, and we'll get into a lot of this, is that Jess, Aaliyah, and Annie have a conversation about how they know they need to stick together and they know they need to get the loud players out, which I think was a cogent, coherent, probably correct analysis of the game. And yet, Ryan got 5 votes from those, and most of those were from the people in that conversation. Mm-hmm. Austin had 4 votes. Jess got 4, which was great for her. Eli got 3. So if we're and then Joseph only got 1, but he used his compass, which they kind of expected anyway. But it was very interesting to me that enough of the players were aware that, we need to be careful and watch out for each other. And yet they still gave their votes to the loud players in the game. And if I had a few of them in the room right now, I would want to know, why did you do that? Because if you knew that they need to go, like, how did you expect this round to go then? That's my confusion here.
Yeah, looking at the notes, Jess gave 2 to Eli, Aaliyah gave 1 to Ryan, Annie gave 2 to Ryan, 2 to Austin. It's the complete opposite of the plan that was discussed.
And Aaliyah was the one Annie vote, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which I don't know why she did that, because I don't know where she thought Annie would get other votes from. Austin made it clear he was using his 1 vote on Courtney. Courtney had no votes, and those are Annie's 2 closest allies. So where else is she going to get votes from?
I don't know. This is such an interesting dynamic that I feel like has come not only into prevalence in this season, but also in terms of Modern Survivor as well. I think a lot of the louder players make it farther, and it's also in the sense that those bigger players make it to the end more. And I think people like Austin and Eli and Ryan, you could argue Joseph to a point. In a sense, you could argue Jess, because she was trying to prop herself up and try to bring Aaliyah and Annie with her. I think that was the very clear narrative. I think that was what was going to stick tonight, because I think it was a force of habit. Jess really trying to play in her own. She had that talk with Joseph, which was shown earlier in the episode, in a way maybe motivating Jess to really start pushing the agenda a little bit, pushing the bill a little bit more than she has, which is cool, because I think Jess is awesome. And I think it was really just chaotic round, lots going on. You want to feel comfortable with who you're with. You want to have the rocks at your home. You want to have your family staying with you the next round, not the guy you just met at the bar yesterday night. And as much as I applaud Jess for really trying to get something going, I think this type of round lends to wanting to fall back into maybe that safety cushion of being with the people that you are with, who have also been relatively loud.
Well, so Jack, going off of what you said, I appreciate Jess trying to make some moves, and I understand wanting to feel comfortable this round. My thing is, and this is for Leah too, they had a chance to make a move against these louder players at the tie tonight. Aaliyah was safe. She could have gotten Austin, Eli, or Ryan out. Jess had a 1 in 4 chance of staying. Jess could have taken that big move and sent one of them home after the girls had talked about this all day, and they just folded to the boys. Like, didn't even try to go against them.
Yeah, I think I really agree with you. I absolutely think that is an ideal situation. You know, if you're a little bit of a gambling player, you see Austin has been to a lot of early trials. Eli has been, running the ship. Ryan's been in your face with this. They are the louder players. They're the ones really trying to chart their own course. I think you're right. And if Jess takes advantage of that, she gambles a little bit, but she gains a lot from it because she gains respect potentially from Joseph fully. And maybe that can become a new, even more better blossomed relationship. Jess could have some agency, She shows that to the jury. Austin, Eli, Ryan are on the jury. They're going to respect that. Jess is like, you know what? I'm going to rocks no matter what. I'm going to take my chances. That's a lot. You save Courtney, you save Annie, you have 4. You have the 4 ladies going into the final 7. And if you really want to stick to that, in my opinion, that would have been a winning combination for Jess if she could ride that 4 to the final 4. So I do agree. I think missed opportunity.
It goes back to our conversation last time too, right? Where it's, are you playing that defensive game or you want to get on the offense and start playing that aggressive game? We're down to 8 at this level, down to 7 after tonight's episode. It really is that time, especially for these quieter players, these non-meat shields as they're trying to align as well, to really start putting their foot on the gas and start building that resume, because as far as we've seen, they may not have that right now. So I also will just echo both of you in saying this was totally the night to make that move, and I think there was a few missed opportunities from a handful of different players tonight.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like the plan going into Crossroads that Jess wanted and Aaliyah wanted and Annie wanted to a certain extent was to get rid of Courtney. Mm-hmm. And I have a problem with that plan too. At a certain, I don't really, I'm not sure what, what I find frustrating is that Jess says at the beginning of the episode exactly what we want her to say.
Yep.
And then immediately, and gets the people together to do it. She gets Aaliyah and she gets Annie in a room and recognizes that Courtney would come with Annie, however. And then does nothing to bring that to fruition when really, all she had to do was gamble on her own game. It was a 1 in 4 shot. If you think you cannot win against Austin, Eli, or Ryan, then who cares if you go out now? Because what's more likely is that one of them goes. And so her chances now of getting to the end without one of those 3 guys just went down dramatically. And I don't really feel like I get why. Because it felt so personal to her, and if you're going to invoke, we're here to talk strategy, right? If you're going to invoke those very personal things, people are going to be frustrated when you don't follow through on that. So she said those very intense things about Eli the previous round. Tonight, she started getting into some very intense language about Joseph, and then proceeded to do all the practical things to keep Eli in the game and let yourself get bowled over by Joseph. And I'll leave the social analysis to other people, but strategically, that's very frustrating.
So it's a double-edged sword. Whenever you try to employ that strategy, it pulls off. Jess does go to rocks. Austin, Eli, or Ryan go home in this move. I mean, you're talking not even just a game-winning move, a season-defining move. You know?
Yes.
Like, you are getting rid of a huge threat. You are connecting and really validating the personal connection and promise you have made to the people that you have made it to. I think it went the wrong way for Jess. And I think she did not take the steps necessary to really confirm that. And that's why I don't see a win. I could see her getting to the end, maybe as a losing finalist.
Calling his shot now.
We do Survivor Stock Watch every Friday at 2.
Or get the plug in.
The stocks went down.
Putting it down, pulling out the compass, all the shenanigans. And you know, I try to really figure out that kind of stuff. Based on everything I saw from Jess this episode, it would make a lot of sense if people would start to be like, if a really savvy, intuitive person saw what Jess did at this crossroads and kind of everything that she did, they would take that and go, I want to go to the end with you. It would be very advantageous for somebody like Eli, like Ryan, like Joseph to take Jess to the end. And they would easily, I think Joseph takes Jess to the end and wins.
Yeah, Joseph's another player I want to talk about tonight because he was certainly at the center of the Jess and Joseph drama, of course. He played a compass correctly. I think he definitely saved himself because if it was a tie vote between him, Annie, and Courtney, that's unanimous. Everybody's going to get Joseph out of here.
Mhm.
So he saves himself, playing a great round, you know, doing all of that good groundwork. And then I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on how he approached the breaking the wheel and getting out of the wheel. He immediately kind of berates Jess and says, I'm doing whatever she doesn't do. I disagree, and I'm voting Annie. Doesn't matter what anybody else says. Boom. Story over. Was that the right move for him to do?
Joseph was spicy tonight. You can't
disagree with that.
I don't know if it was socially the best approach, but as a viewer, I loved it. Great TV.
Sounds like something I would do.
It really does.
Emulating some Jack Powell energy.
Schneidman, you look like you have thoughts.
Yeah, because I understand his frustration, right? Like, I get that he felt that he had made a social connection with Jess, a social connection that, at least in what she said to us, was validated by her. She said, like, oh, Joseph has recognized the type of game I want to play. She says that to Joseph, and she says that to us, in her confessional. And then she comes back the next day and says, actually, I was offended by that. Not only do I disagree with him, I was offended by that. And so again, I will leave to other people, like, their analysis of that turn. But so I get why he was mad.
Yeah.
But dude, you cannot get that mad. I think if he had just played his compass and let it go, because what does he care who goes if there's a wheel? What does he care? And, like, why does he care? Like, what? So, oh, Annie's a floater, so I want her gone? Dude, who cares? Who cares? Like he feels he has no inroads in the game. I'm safe. Who cares? So, like, I think him deliberately antagonizing Jess, I think him going out of his way to get Annie out of the game, I think that was really brutal in terms of threat management, in terms of social game. I'm not even sure that it was that good for him strategically. And I think, like, here's my question for the group. Would any of Austin, Eli, Ryan, or Jess have been bad? If any of them went, would any of that have been bad for Joseph's game?
No. Joseph may be in with Austin a little bit. They're almost frenemies at this point. But to your point, he has no inroads. I think he is a lone wolf right now. He knows he's kind of at the top in terms of threat levels right now. Everybody wants him out. He has been this season's Compass King, has played the most bold game. He said it himself at the end of the episode. He is the one playing the loudest, most abrasive game. That would have been a perfect time to take that half step back, manage that threat level a little bit, and maybe be safe for just one more round, use that next round to build those relationships. I think going into the next episode, he is definitely has the biggest target on his back right now.
And he painted it himself.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
There's a point where you go too far. There's a point where I think saying, look, I'm just going to do Annie. I think that's the best for me. I'm going to stick on Annie. Otherwise, you guys are going to rocks. I honestly think that would be just enough.
Anything else on Joseph? Any final thoughts on his electric night?
I wish him luck the next round.
That's a fair way.
Especially when you now know that Joseph has now seen this in real time, that Jess is taking things very personally.
Yes.
Right? Like, you watched it happen with Eli the previous night. What'd you say, Jess?
I said, she's got to tone it down a little bit after.
Yeah. Like you know that Jess is taking things very personally. So why do that now? Like, why create an enemy when you didn't really have one? I didn't get the sense that Jess was making an enemy out of Joseph or was intending on it. And so that is just, I don't know. That's
another player that had an interesting night was Austin. Losing Annie, his number one ally, he, during the crossroads, almost said he might go to the wheel. He thought, maybe I'll go to the wheel and just see what happens in this. I honestly don't think that would have been a bad idea for him. Now, in the tiebreaker, he voted for Annie. So I'm very confused as to where Austin's game is going. I wonder if that was kind of trying to just save his own skin. Curious where you all think.
Austin's voting in general was interesting this round because the first round he threw it on Courtney, and then when it tied, he threw it on Annie, which are his two closest allies. And I understand his reasoning throwing it on Courtney. Like, I love Courtney so much, but I do understand why she would be difficult to strategize with. She had a rough night tonight. But happy birthday, Courtney. Shout out.
Happy birthday week.
Birthday week, month. He has a birthday this year. We're going to celebrate it, damn it.
That's right.
damn right we are.
It's going to be great.
Yeah, I don't really understand why he flipped back to Annie, though. Because it seemed like his reasoning for wanting to keep Courtney in his voting confessional was the same reasoning why he wanted to vote her out before. But, I mean, he's losing an ally one way or the other, so I guess he just made a game time call.
Unless he says, no, I'm going to stick with Courtney on the final one and send it to the wheel. I mean, he had a, 20% chance? It was 1 in 5 at that point to send somebody else home. That's an 80% chance he stays in the game and sends somebody else home. I like the odds.
That's the thing for all of them. Is like for Joseph, for Jess, for Aaliyah, for Austin. If you go to the wheel and you survive it, Annie and Courtney are yours.
Great point.
Joseph goes. I know Joseph would have done this. Joseph would go to Annie and Courtney. Guys, I really want to work with you guys. That's what whoever was the one who was credited with forcing the wheel would have had Courtney's loyalty for the rest of the game. Annie may perhaps less so, but you would have made new allies. You know,
you would have had a potential final 3 locked.
Yeah,
as that. You saved both of their.
I wonder if Austin was swayed by his conversation with Eli. I wonder if he has that conversation with Eli close to the vote and is like, Eli has a point. I should probably stick this out with the other loud players. And that's my best shot of making it to the end.
I think Eli did have a lot to do with it. He was a loud and driving voice in that discussion tonight, like getting people on track. Austin, are you going to do this? Does this make sense for you? I think if Eli didn't prompt him, maybe he would have thought about it a little more, because I think out of any of those guys, Austin likes to be risky the most. But I mean, props to Eli for putting some force on them.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think really this whole non-wheel decision to stick with the unanimous decision it really only benefited Eli and Ryan. I think those are the only two that truly benefited from this because there was no wheel. I think it's absolutely in everyone else's wheelhouse to go to a wheel. I think it's in Aaliyah's. Hey, you guys have basically thrown me on the bottom entirely last episode. My number one of the entire game, Joshua went home. I'm going to send you to the wheel, and let's see who stays, Take the power. Talking about Austin, save Courtney and Annie. Your literal number ones. The people you survived with on that third purple tribe. The third tribe, which was purple. You survived Aaron going home. You survived Josh going home. That is such a strong relationship. Jess, obviously. Joseph, obviously. Again, just everybody could have gone to the wheel. Eli and Ryan were the only two,
So I want to sit in Aaliyah's seat for a second because I want to. We talked a bit about Aaliyah, but I think she did amazing social work tonight throughout the strategizing session, which she was able to do because she won. And so, winning that challenge enabled her to do what I think is her superpower, which is amazing social work. People love talking to her. I think that has been true throughout the entire game. My question, if we're sitting in Aaliyah's seat, where we've just done great social work, obviously her ideal situation is one of Ryan, Eli, or Austin going out at that wheel. But even if Jess goes at that wheel, would it have been a disaster for her game? I don't think it would have. It would have been bad. It would have been bad. It now would have been the second. But would it have been as bad for her game as losing one of those other three would have been good for her game? I think the downside was not as down as the upside was up. And I'm wondering if you guys agree with me on that.
Yeah, definitely. Totally. I mean, the cranberries disintegrated the night before, so she didn't really even have Jess until halfway through tonight. It wasn't a real lasting alliance. She would have picked someone else up the next day.
Yeah, totally.
It would have been with. No, go ahead, Sam. Go ahead, Sam.
She's in that the other position too of not similar to Joseph. Not too many inroads, like Jack said. She just lost her number one. It's time for her to kind of build her game 2.0. And like you said, her social game is incredible. This would have been a great time to just get rid of one of those other people. Even if she did lose Jess, to your point, she has 6 other people left now that she could still build that relationship with. She kind of tore that down tonight by taking, again, that half measure. It's been a season of half measures, and this is just another instance of that.
And some people who would have needed her now. If Jess was gone, Annie would have needed her. There would have been groups of people who would continue to need Aaliyah. And I think that, and again, I think that world is not nearly as bad as the trouble that she finds herself in now, which is that all of these loud players are still around. After she's already acknowledged the problem.
I'd like to propose a solution potentially to this, a hot fix, as you would say, a bug redeployment, so to speak. I think a course of action that Aaliyah could take in this exact scenario, Joseph is brutalizing Jess, saying, "Look, I'm not gonna do whatever Jess says." Listen, I know they had a really great conversation, and Jess says she wants to go to the end, but I would hop with Joseph if I were Aaliyah just this round. We've seen that Jess may not be as entirely reliable. She plays with a little bit of her heart. It's an interesting take for sure, and definitely a rocky road to back Joseph in this scenario, but I think in the regard that maybe Jess would go home, you have Joseph, you have Annie, and you have Courtney going into the final 7 as Aaliyah, and there are new numbers for you. Because I think Aaliyah's whole really approach to this was, I need new people.
And I think that option is still on the table right now, right? Losing Annie doesn't hurt that. I would love to see if those two, again, pretty much at the bottom, I would say Aaliyah and Joseph are the two biggest targets going into the next round. Yeah. Those two hooking up and making some inroads. Again, at 7. 7 is my personal favorite number of people left because it is such a turning point in the game, right? 6 is really where you have those definitive alliances. 7 is that last chance to really make a huge move, in my opinion. So I'll be really curious to see if Aaliyah can carry this momentum. I think tonight she took it 95% of the way there, and overall was probably my player of the night, just with the exemption win, losing her ally and yet still making those social inroads. Aaliyah was the player of the night, and I would love to see her just take it that last step next round to make it really cement her position.
I think like Annie going is not bad for her game, but I think my friend I don't want to state this part clearly. Like I don't think Annie going is bad for her game, but I think that there was more that could have been done to help her game that she passed up.
Totally.
What I'm looking forward to hearing in the next episode is what the thought process was behind not going to the wheel there, because I'm not sure I understand it from a few players' perspectives.
I think if Aaliyah were to really not necessarily find a core number one to replace Joshi, but rather to stick with numbers and be able to float her way to the end, in a sense where she wasn't targeted, because I think if she gets recognized as, oh, hey, Aaliyah won a exemption right after Joshi and Kara went home, then she made a big move the next round. Aaliyah is someone that's going to be taken out at the final 5. She doesn't have to make the grandest moves, but she has to be definitely a part of and in the decisions.
The wheel is obviously the most fun as a viewer, but it just made sense for so many people this round. Why didn't it happen?
And it made sense maybe for more people than it didn't make sense for. It would have made sense for Jess, would have made sense for Aaliyah, Courtney, Annie, obviously, because they're 4, but they don't get a vote.
Aaliyah.
Austin.
Yeah, Austin, Joseph.
Really, Ryan and Eli are the only 2 that benefited from tonight.
It was one.
And it really played out perfect for Eli because Courtney is still in his pocket, and he didn't, out of chance lose her tonight either. He lost probably the most advantageous person to lose tonight. So, good looking out for Eli at this point.
Yeah. Jeez. And Jess is back with him.
Yeah. They had some good, solid strategy chats tonight, and I think they're back in good standing. So, Eli
did
now.
Did you vote for him twice tonight?
This is why I think Eli, despite the fact that he is one of the louder players, despite the fact that he is already being targeted, this is why I believe he's going to win the season. Because he can just have these things happen, have people still vote in a way that's favorable for him, still get out of the targeting zone, and be completely in the clear. And I don't know how it happens. Couldn't even do it myself if I could try. I respect it, and I think that because of that ability, and we've actually been seeing that ability through the gameplay and through the results, based on my psychoanalysis, I think that's why Eli will win. But, who am I? Who am I to say?
He needs exemption challenge wins. If he's going to get to the end, he needs exemption challenge wins or a compass.
That is true.
Because I think that it's just it's been pointed out too early in the game that he's a problem, and it sooner rather than later, the people are going to want to come for him. So I think he's going to need some exemption challenge wins to get through there. I think his position is still very tenuous, so I'm not ready to make a winner pick there.
He did have a good round today, though. Like for someone who is such a big threat, he got 3 votes, and he convinced people to not go to the wheel. So good round for Eli. Ryan, I want to shout him out too. This was another good round for him. He got 5 votes, the most out of anybody, and he decided to use one to throw the hinky vote on Joseph, which Joseph counteracted it, but it's still good for him.
Which could have sent Joseph home if he didn't play the compass.
Yeah, that could have been a big move for him. So good. Shout out Ryan.
Yeah, Ryan.
Another good round for you.
And is anybody going to acknowledge that he got 5 votes? Is anybody going to be like, wow, Ryan sure got a lot of votes that round?
He keeps kind of flying under the radar and just playing that low-key, great social game. It really is incredible.
I'm curious if anyone will actually call that out or remember it amongst the chaos so much shit went on tonight
Yeah,
that if it was me, I would forget that Ryan got 5 votes.
It's crazy. He's an absolute sleeper.
We almost went to the wheel. Eli made a bold stand to keep us from getting to the wheel. Joseph antagonized Jess. It's not going to be the main topic on the top of anybody's mind. You're right.
It was
that guy's good.
Truly a round of high highs and low lows. I feel like some people almost not sunk their ship, but are starting to sink their ship. And some people really positioned themselves for a solid run. Now that we're down to just 7 players left, we only have a few rounds left of this. Any final thoughts before we move on from this great fireside chat on what was an incredible day 10?
The thing I would say to anybody who ever plays these games is that if you know the state of the game and you want to do something about it, don't wait. Don't wait. And don't do something that will eventually make it harder for you to solve the problem that you already know you have. We're at final 8. We're at final 8, and the chances it's going to be very hard to get all 4 of those players out. It's just going to. There's going to be there are more advantages in the game. You know that there are exemption challenges, and it's going to be hard. And if you know that that's going to happen and you see the clear shot, fucking take it and don't deviate. Do not deviate, especially when you know it. So that is what was so frustrating. They know, and they're saying it out loud to each other, and they did everything they needed to do to get the pieces in place, and they just when it got to nut crunching time, they let it go, and I'm rooting for them. That was the thing. I'm rooting for them, and so that's what's frustrating.
I agree. There's not a lot of opportunities left to make moves, and the way that this particular season has gone, we've thrown so many twists in there. You can assume we're probably going to have another double, so if you have a clear shot to make your move, do it.
Absolutely. I think it really comes down to situational awareness. Do you have that keen eye? Can you read the room in 5 seconds and understand who the biggest threat is? Who's the person that's going to slither their way to the end? If you have that killer instinct of reading the room, you will go far and you will win, especially in a season like this where it is so twist heavy and there's so many nuances to the gameplay. There's been so many tribes. There's 6 tribes? I can't even count them on one hand.
And I want to add on, it's not just about having the awareness, because every player in this game has that awareness. There's nobody left in the game who has a poor read on the state of the game. Every single one of them has a good read. You have to act on it. You have to do something about it, and you cannot be scared. You cannot be scared.
Perfect words to go out on. I think that is a fantastic way to end this fireside chat. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Jess, Schneidman, Jack, thanks for joining me. This was Expedition Online, Season 6, Day 10. Stay tuned for Episode 7, everybody. Peace.